Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the Business Exchange Southwest Charity Conference and Expo in partnership with Milstead Langdon Accountants and Stone King Law. I'm excited to bring to your screens this morning the team from Digital Wonder Lab based in Bradford-on-Avon and working across the Southwest and nationally as well, and also Jenny Perez from MentoringPlus, who has been working really closely with the Digital Wonder Lab team. So I'm going to let you take the stage and I'm going to pop off your screens. Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you, Anita and Business Exchange. So we're delighted to be part of the Charity Conference and Expo again this year. And we're here to sort of have a bit of a conversation today about digital experiences and the user experience of that. So without further ado, user experience or UX is a term we hear pretty often, but really, do we really understand what it's all about? At Digital Wonder Lab, we talk about creating memorable user experiences and beautifully designed digital solutions, which help bring brands to life and delight the people that we all care about. But what does that really mean in reality? And today we have a few people who can really talk about this in simple language and give you some great insights and working knowledge of how it really does put people at the center of what we do digitally. And we ensure that the digital world seamlessly links to the physical world as we go about our daily lives. So I'd like to introduce Laura Pinkstone, who is our UX designer in the creative team at Digital Wonder Lab and user experience guru, and Nathan Baranowski, who's Chief Wondermaker and Super Thinker at Digital Wonder Lab. And as you hear, we've also been joined by one of our charity partners, who, again, we work closely with on projects very core to their future and bringing all the things they need to for the people they care about. So welcome to our speakers, and we're going to begin our journey into the wonderful world of UX. The first person I'd like to turn to is Nathan, to put some context around the way that many charitable organisations need to approach the digital first world and bring great user experiences. Can we ask you, what are the key questions we might be asking at the beginning of a project where an organisation is wanting to define where they are right now and aiming to build a real strong digital plan and user experience for the future?
Sure. So I think kind of one of the big questions that we often get when going into an organization is simply kind of the brief reads. We need to be better. We need something new, whether it's a website or an app. And the challenge there often, and the question that's not been asked really, is kind of actually why. And really kind of for us, we're seeking to try and understand a series of questions, which simply put are, what is the problem you're seeking to solve? Why is that problem in existence? What is it that your users need, and how do they want that need being met? And then from there, really trying to understand from a digital point of view, and only at that point from a digital point of view, do we understand why and how do we want to meet that through the digital process? So really, simply put, good digital needs to be firmly grounded in organizational purpose, really kind of be able to sit well with what it's doing and solve a problem. That problem is either making life easier, simpler, better, or enhancing the way that we communicate, engage, or offer something out into the world. And those big questions help us really to form some understanding around that and make sense of where we might want to head and how then the solution will help to deliver that.
Great, thank you. Let's bring in Laura from Digital Wonder Lab now, because we'd like to know a little bit more about what you do every day, and consider really how we put people at the centre of what we do. So can you tell us a little bit about what exactly is UX and why it's so important?
Yeah, so UX is really just understanding the users, so people who are coming to your website, your app, speaking to you on the phone. So it's really about anybody you engage with, and then it's about understanding what they're looking to do when they come to speak to you or come to engage with the website. So for me, when I begin working with the client, it's really to immerse myself into their world, understanding what they're about, what they're looking to achieve, who they engage with, and that's really understanding, what their challenges are within the organisation as well. So we can really kind of, begin to absorb ourselves into their world, and understand that, bigger picture around their online processes, their offline processes, how they're engaging with people, what they're looking to achieve. and really understanding their target audiences, so that we can kind of start understanding what they're going to be looking to do when they start to engage with that organisation.
Brilliant, thank you. And that's a really clear explanation. So how does that work with, you know, we hear about UX and we hear about sort of UI as well. What are the differences between the two? And given that they're quite interdependent, how does that work?
Yeah, so with UX, you know, we're looking to understand the different target audiences and identify, you know, what their goals are when they're coming to an organisation. So we begin to kind of dig a bit deeper into the user journeys, what their goals are, so what tasks are they trying to complete, to then begin looking at that structure, that framework for the website, so people can navigate it easily. UI, we then begin to look at, you know, the visual side of it, how people are going to interact with something. You know, what do the colours need to be to make it accessible so everybody can use your website, and how we can enhance that experience through the UI and make it engaging for somebody. Throughout the process, you know, we're always looking to test things, learn, keep refining that so we can make it the best it can be.
Perfect. It'd be really great to dig a little deeper into this actually. And I've heard again, you know, understanding the end user. We talk about having some user research and profiling those users and almost coming up with a bit of a persona and a profile of that person. So how does that really work as a process? So when you're working with a client like Jenny, how do you actually sort of go about that whole task?
Yeah, so we have typically kind of 3 workshops that we would run with clients. So with Jenny, we had 3 workshops, and we began by really what we call immersion and impact workshops. So this is really to understand the organisation, understand what they're about, to then drill into where are their problem areas. So for Jenny, I know it was the website, and they were looking to obviously take that forward and have a better presence, you know, being able to do forms online. So we tried to unpick those problems that they were having to then understand where they wanted to get to. So what was the impact we're looking to have with the project? After that workshop, we then brought in more people within the organisation to understand the target audience. There's a wealth of knowledge within the organisation, so we wanted to gather all that knowledge together to begin to understand the different types of users, how they engage with those users, whether it's phone calls, whether it's kind of in-person meetings, so we can begin to understand how they might interact with technology throughout that process. The third workshop was then to explore the user journey mapping. So this is to go through the goals. So taking a task such as, you know, applying to become a mentor, and what that process needs to be for someone to achieve that goal. And then, you know, from there, we're able to then begin building out those wireframes to start to explore, you know, how the visual side of it will look, what that framework looks like, to then start collaborating with Jenny and the team to refine that and then start to bring that to life through the designs.
Brilliant. That's a great time, I think, to turn to Jenny actually and find out a little bit more of your experience of working through some of these workshops. How did you find them, and did you really find them useful to understand your users? Did you know much about your users before you started?
We found them incredibly useful. Laura loves a question, and we were more than happy to answer them all. And just her insight into our organisation so quickly was just, from our perspective, was just, yeah, really insightful. I think we came to the whole process just thinking, well, we want a new website. It's a bit dated. Our website's a bit dated. We just want to refresh, and thought we'd go straight into the kind of, we'll put this tab there, that tab there. We went backwards before we went forwards, and the journey was just incredibly useful for us. So we were given the kind of the user journeys and individual user profiles. So from my perspective, that was really helpful. So if someone was coming to look to be a mentor, what were what were their frustrations going to be before they came to the site, what were their emotional needs going to be, and we looked at the whole sort of the bigger picture, if you like, before they even entered our site, and then what was their journey going to be through our site. And that was just the kind of planning phase. I think we have learned a lot already just through doing this experience.
And did you get the whole team involved? Did everyone get stuck into the whole process with you?
We did, and it was really necessary to get the whole team involved. I mean, I look after fundraising and communications. I can't possibly experience what it's like to be a practitioner in our team, or what it's like to be our chief exec. So we got various different levels of people involved, and they talked through. We're all using the website in different ways, although currently my personal feeling is not many people are using our website, and that's why we wanted to change it. It's not user friendly. The journey is not a great journey. So yeah, and again, I know that Laura was there asking lots and lots of questions, but again, incredibly insightful questions, and ones that we hadn't thought of. We're so busy delivering the service, it's just not our area of expertise or what we spend our time doing. So to have someone external asking these questions and kind of saying, and actually making things more effective, so joining up some dots for us and saying, well, we could save you some time, was just, yeah, I mean, that was just a gift. We could save you some time by doing this, or putting a form online, or things like that. We would never have thought of any of that at the outset.
And I guess when you're very close to a project, it's even more difficult, isn't it? Once you're in there, you can't sort of almost stand back and see what's happening. And I guess that's one of the great things that having someone else looking at it from a different lens can bring. What were sort of the big discoveries do you think you've made, both Laura and Jenny, as you went through the workshops? Were there any sort of big highlights that really stood out to you?
I don't know if there was anything highlighted that I didn't already know, because I knew that people weren't using our website. We as an internal team were not telling people to go to our website, which just shouts volumes to me. We're not using it as a tool. And so we're still in the journey. We're still just, we're still part of the journey and working towards the website. So, I'll just be so thrilled to be able to proudly say, go to our website. This is where the information is, and for people to work their way around the website, because they wouldn't naturally just take one kind of linear path through our website. They might dot around and that kind of thing. So that's what we're working towards now.
I think for me, it was like really getting into the understanding the processes. So when someone applies, what's happening in the background, to really understand that full journey. So it might not touch the website, but just understanding from the website potentially what someone could then do, to then look at how that technology could then support and save time for someone who's coming to the website, as well as people working at MentoringPlus, and really just kind of picking that apart to go, how can we save each other time, and enhance that experience as well, to make it, when someone's going through that process with MentoringPlus, how can we make that a smooth journey for somebody, and just make it the best it can be.
And I guess as well, when you get into sort of the research side, and even when you get further ahead and you're into sort of testing, sometimes you hear things that you really want to hear and you expect to hear, and other times you hear things that you don't really want to hear or you didn't expect to hear. Were there any of those sorts of moments in the sort of research that you did for this project?
I think it was, we've gone through quite a process, and I think it's like just getting immersed and understanding kind of the different processes that go on. That took quite a long time, and then when we get into the wireframing stage, that's where we can bring everybody back in and start to explore whether we've kind of laid it out right. Have I understood it correctly? To then make sure that everything I've taken on board can then be translated back out onto a website. So that's where Jenny was really helpful in kind of, going, no, that's not quite right. We need to change that. And just where I haven't quite understood things. And again, where we're in that design stage, again, where we've now brought in the color and the visual side of it, now sending that out to a wider group to get that feedback, so we can keep iterating and keep changing and make sure that we get it right before we go into build. I think it's so important, because we want MentoringPlus to be proud of the website that they've got. So we want to make sure we get it right before we get into that build stage.
I think something really interesting in this project around the kind of where the stakeholder is in the journey and how that interaction is coming in. So that process flow that Laura just mentioned is really important, actually, in terms of where we're seeing the interaction, and someone may have be seeking to become a mentor or is looking for mentorship, and actually how that process then flows in and when that will happen. So those interactions can have quite significant time lapses between them, as well as there is a lot of input needed. So one might say, oh, we've just got some forms that we need to fill in, but actually they're quite important processes that have quite significant impact. So making that experience as digitally friendly as possible for the end user, but also making that as easy as possible for them to go through is a really important part here. But it's not a particularly complex journey. There's lots of nuances in that, and once we map that out, it's quite clear how complicated that is. But also that challenge on I think on the data protection side of things, we've all been through GDPR and the dreaded data reviews that we all had to do at those times, but actually kind of really going back and just saying, actually, why are we capturing this data? What are we trying to do with it? And making sure that, again, those forms really are capturing at the right point, the right information, in order to help the user to just not put any barriers in front of people going through that. And I think that's a really, for us in this project, particularly key point was just getting that as simple as possible. And a form is a form in some respects, but there's a lot around that just needs to be thought through and does get lost. And that's a really important kind of element in terms of making that difference between someone saying submit and can't be bothered.
So it sounds like we've been through some great user research. We've mapped the journeys. We've done some profiling of our audience here. So the next step, I heard you mention wireframing, Laura. What's wireframing, and talk us through how that works from that initial discovery phase.
So wireframing is it's black and white, and it is just the structure. It's the framework of the site. So it's just the basic layout, and it's very quick and easy to change at that point. So we've just laid out the navigation, how someone's going to flow through the different pages, what content needs to be on those pages. So just titles really, to then go into, we're going to have videos and just really getting that framework in place. And that allows us to, we can then kind of share that with people to then get that feedback and make sure that we've got the right content. So it's more about that structure, not about the visual side of it at this point, but making sure we've taken all those findings from our target audience groups, what their goals are, making sure that we've captured that and brought it all into those wireframes, to then build out basic prototypes. And when we talk about prototypes, we're talking about where you can start clicking the buttons and moving through the different pages. And then that way it means that we can start to share that with the team to make sure that we've got the right information or we've got the right terminology, and we can keep evolving that as we begin to kind of share it with different people.
And is this something you put in front of the team at MentoringPlus and others? Is it a sort of tight team that you work with then to test and learn?
Yep, so it varies. So with MentoringPlus, we've taken it to the team and shared that. And then other times we can take that out to users, so the actual target audience groups, and take that into testing. And then that way we can test it with the target audience to make sure it's right and make sure that they can move through the different pages to find the correct information for them. And that way we're not looking at kind of the visual side, so pictures, which can be quite influencing to people when they're looking at something. We're just looking at that structure. So if you strip out all the pictures, all the color, could someone navigate the site easily?
And when you finish that phase, what comes next? What did you and Jenny get up to next after the wireframing in this project?
So now we're on to design, so where we start to bring that the brand in through onto the pages, and looking at that visual element of the site and how we're going to make sure that by adding that color, adding in the imagery, that people can still navigate the site easily, find the content that they're looking for.
And is this where you start talking about things like accessibility and making sure that the design is absolutely right for all the target audience that you're trying to reach?
Yep. So we with actually the MentoringPlus branding, we've actually had to tweak colours slightly to make sure that they're accessible. And when we talk about accessibility, we're making sure that it's the colour contrast. So people who are visually impaired can make sure that they can find that, read that information, and easily, move through the website still. So at every step, we've got to make sure that we're making the website accessible as possible, and that will be taken through into the build stage. So when we get into the build, we make sure that, again, screen readers are going to work and people can tab through the website as well.
And how was this part of the experience for you, Jenny? How involved did you get in this stage as well, and the team?
Yeah, we had some nervousness around the kind of the color change and things like that, because obviously our branding is our branding, but actually we can't notice the color change. It's that subtle. So yeah, obviously we wanted to keep our branding. That's what we've had for kind of over 20 odd years, and that's very much still there. And I think, yeah, now we're looking at the designs of the homepage, and we've got a few options and the ability to kind of move things around and tweak things and get it absolutely right in a way that we think will show our values. Because it's really important that we work with young people and we have values around being playful and creative and that kind of thing. So it's really important for us that is displayed. So to have a number of options of home pages to look at has helped us work out what we need as well. So yeah, been really useful.
I was going to ask Nathan just to talk a little bit about digital design and that whole immersive experience, that bit that we're getting into now, talking about the visual side. What sort of things have you come across? And we've worked with a lot of charities over the years. What sort of things have we sort of learned ourselves about this particular stage?
Yes, I think it's really interesting when we think about digital and that kind of digital space, that we're still, I think psychologically, we're still stuck with words and pictures a lot of the time. And actually what we're really looking to do is create that movement and that immersive experience. And when we talk about immersive, we're thinking about kind of how does information need to flow onto the page. We can be really clever with that. It's not about placing a video and embedding something from YouTube. It's about actually thinking about the story that you're trying to tell. And what is that narrative? What is that key message? And keeping that really simple. So whether it is having a site which is scrolling left to right, or it is scrolling down, actually, how do we use that to build a lovely picture? And we see with great tools like parallax scrolling, which allows us to build immersive experience. You see that a lot with things like Apple are prolific parallax scrollers in some of the work they do, where we can actually build this picture. You can actually build out from that. You can immerse into something. You can allow the user to flow through it, and they're really useful tools. I think the other side for me is that we have to think about the size of screen, and we seem to be going back into a trend of the most minutiae of screens. So we've all got tiny mobile phones and we love using them for browsing the web, and then we have ridiculously large computer monitors, or we're on laptops which are getting smaller and smaller. So a laptop actually is not that much bigger than a tablet these days. And so again, you're kind of left with, and you'll see this a lot of websites when you're sat on your laptop are actually responding as if it's a mobile site and not actually giving you a correct experience. So thinking about the size of the screen, the size of the browser window that is going to be used, and what we can actually put through on that is really important when we think about that design. And then I think it's really about considering the other aspects. So when we think about digital, we think about the website itself, but also we're going to think about the other aspects that will come with that. So when we think about digital transcends into social media. We think about kind of if you have communication services on there, whether they're chatbots, callback services, book a meeting, whatever those things are that you're trying to do, they all have interactions. And somewhere in there, no doubt, there's an email confirmation that's coming to someone to say, thank you very much for your inquiry. We've got to think about all of the design aspects in all of those areas in order to support what we're doing. But fundamentally, bringing it to life, being really clever with that, and telling that story. I'm a firm believer, if you took away all of the text, whatever is left on that website, and thinking from a wireframe visual point of view, should be able to deliver and tell someone this is what this site is about. And that's really important, particularly in a charity space where you're trying to get across quite important meaning, and a lot of the time that meaning is emotional trigger, necessarily kind of a sort of non-emotional transactional trigger. So therefore, we need to really bring that emotive side into the design and make sure that we're really kind of hitting home with those headlines and with that cause.
Fantastic. And I guess we've talked a lot about here websites, very important thing. And as Jenny said, it's kind of often the place you start. You think, I need a new website and I need to improve my website. Is that it? I mean, how does a website work? Is life just about, having your website in order? What else do we need to be thinking about here in terms of supporting our charity?
Yes, I mean, digital definitely in terms of the public space isn't just a website, so you've got all those other social channels that one may be pushing out, but also I think kind of we're in a space now where websites need to be much more integrated into an organization. So we'd say kind of websites shouldn't be islands. They're there to help actions be taken, whether that is someone triggering something or we need to interface with someone. We're using the website as a conduit to allow for that activity. And therefore, in the back of that, really, it's about information flow. How does someone update their information, enhance that information? You receive that information, do something with that information. How do we allow information to flow effectively through an organization and out again? And we can do that in many different ways. So that is either simple interactions, so form filling processes. Someone does something, we receive. Someone buys something, someone makes a donation. They are interaction, transaction type level activity. We then have kind of the world of chatbots, and I think a lot of organizations are beginning to play with this, particularly organizations that provide services which require kind of interactions, whether it's information giving or advice giving. A chatbot at a very basic level is a glorified FAQ system. So think about it in that way. If you have FAQs, you find yourself just constantly providing information and advice is always the same. Well, then a chatbot can provide that information and advice, because the same triage process that you go through to ask someone a question, and it's kind of the call center process is kind of very much a respond and interact type of activity. We can deliver that. And that's really important in terms of thinking about them when the humans come into that process and enhancing that with human activity. The other side of that is really that chatbot actually trying to help someone and actually dealing with the cut from a customer service point of view. And just if you step back a moment from a kind of, oh my God, a robot doing something for us, and actually think about some of the interactions that we have, 9 times out of 10, you're triaging that initial conversation. Who are you? What is it you're after? How can we possibly help you? You're asking a series of questions in order to say, great, this is what we now need to do next. Well, a robot is really good at doing that and can do that really efficiently, and then also book that meeting in with the right person or give them the right information or respond. And I think that area is something where we don't spend enough time thinking about. The flip of that is then into the world of speakers and smart speakers, which are more and more prolific in terms of our homes, but also on our smartphones now, where we're beginning to start to get used to asking questions. Now, I'm not sure that someone would necessarily ask the question of kind of, hey, whatever, or hello, whatever. I won't say it because my phone might go off. And then be looking for kind of, I'm looking for mentorship. But there are elements around that where you might want to seek that from a donation or a local event. What's going on in my area today? How might I kind of engage? And actually all we're doing is trawling for data and then actually coming back and giving some information. You might think about this, you might want to do this. Those activities where we're trying to support people and enable people or actually gain information back. So feedback, a great example of that for me in the health care sector is kind of really thinking about people in community where 9 times out of 10, a health professional going in is just asking someone how they're feeling and trying to understand where they are in their journey. Well, actually, again, a chatbot can do that with someone on a smart speaker and just ask that simple question: how are you feeling today? Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling angry. We can read data. We can understand through the technology what your emotional state is from what you're responding. You say, I'm feeling great. Or we can say, I'm feeling great. We can go, we know there's anger in there. Therefore, okay, when that person turns up, how much, if we've got 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever that time is, how much more of that we can use actually to help that person rather than necessarily just be about supporting from that aspect. And then you can't forget a watch. They haven't quite prolifically kind of started to build out in the way that we might think, but the technology inside watches is growing hugely fast. And I think actually the use of wearables will take us by storm soon. And I think, user interface within a watch is very different from user interface within a mobile phone or even on a large screen. We really have to think about what we're doing and why we might be doing that. It always makes me laugh that you can read Power BI charts on a watch. It's like, kind of, why would you ever want to see a graph that small? It's kind of almost like pointless. It'd need to be one data point. Am I doing good or bad? It's kind of almost, an upward arrow or downward arrow to make any sense of what you might be seeing. But that technology is very, very, very important in terms of making that easy for people.
And if we talk through that with Jenny now, Jenny, in terms of your ecosystem, your digital ecosystem, obviously you've been working through a fairly significant project, which has been focused on your website. How does this look for you now in terms of sort of data flow? What are other things that are in your digital ecosystem at MentoringPlus that you're focusing upon?
That's a great question, Jo, because funnily enough, one of the things that I'm taking from Nathan on aside from the website is that we need to have a digital strategy. The pandemic showed us and many other third sector organisations just how important it is to have digital solutions. We literally, we're a small team. We literally just focus on our delivery. That's what we do. And I focus on fundraising and outward facing comms through social media and so forth. We are, that is what we do because that's where the demand is. That's what's pulling our time. But we absolutely, this for us, should be and hopefully will be the start of a journey towards more digital solutions, because we're going to be left behind and we don't want to be left behind. And I see things that larger national charities are doing, and I think we should be doing that. I want a piece of that. And the end result, why do I want a piece of that? I want a piece of that because I want more people to know about MentoringPlus. I want more people to volunteer as a mentor. I want more people to donate to us and support us. There are real big outcomes to that. So I think for us, this is a start. And I hope that it will, the journey will continue, and we'll definitely be asking around for support because, again, we're not the experts in this. So, yeah, it's just the start of a journey.
And you talk about the start of a journey. It's a perfect time to ask again. How have you felt working with a digital partner in something like this kind of journey? Has it supported your whole team, and how do you see this sort of working going forwards for you? Do you see most of your sort of organisation becoming involved as digital becomes more and more part of the way we all work?
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, I think we have, none of us were using Zoom before, pre last March. And we have embraced it, and we have, we did online training for the first time last year, and we would never have done that before and would never have thought it could have been successful. And it wasn't perfect by any means, and we learned from it, but we did it, we delivered it, which meant that we continued to have a pipeline of mentors. We could not train people because we had young people waiting for mentors. So it wasn't an option to not engage. And I think, as a team, we're now seeing that, we're now accepting that right across the board. So, and that's half, if we're all engaged with it, then we'll be able to move it forward. So I think we are, I think we, again, I think we need to be, and there's a definite interest in moving us forward. But I think, as ever, I would say our resource is tight because we're focused on delivering, and that's the challenge that we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's really important to add into that. We came to be working with MentoringPlus because we offered to support, and I think there's something so important, and I believe from the conversation that we had at the time was in another call where I kind of just said there needs to be a blatant ask. I think charities and organizations need to be really blatant with the ask of, this is what we're trying to do, can you help us? And it's not about organizations trying to give something necessarily for free or kind of undervaluing that. But I think organizations have, and digital organizations particularly, have a responsibility to help organizations where they don't have that skill set to do things better. And I think that's really important that we work in that way. And I would ask that any digital organization in the Southwest support local charities and other aspects in order to support enabling people to get there faster, because we are in a digital world, and it's, you know, and it's hard. You know, the sort of investment that's needed sometimes to do these things can be incredibly large, but also there's some huge pitfalls that organizations can find themselves in, where suddenly you've just hemorrhaged a load of money that you didn't need to hemorrhage at all in order to achieve that same result. And I think, you know, spending well, understanding where you're going is really key. And I'd also say, you know, I'm a digital trustee of a charity, and I think that kind of direction is also really important, to start to think about the importance of digital and how it forms within your charity. And if you don't have one, starting that question kind of, actually, is digital important to us, and how do we bring that in? I think that narrative of sort of, you know, we have digital strategies because digital isn't the norm just yet. So why wouldn't we have a digital trustee to help us to guide that path and help to think about it at that level, and just begin to help those conversations? Because it needs to start at your executive level, it needs to start at your governance level with your trustees, as well as organisation at the grassroots. I think that's really, really key to think through. And that bit doesn't cost, because trustees are volunteers. So great way of getting some free time and support in order to enable that.
And I think the other thing that we've noticed as well, that we work in a bit of an ecosystem ourselves. So there are so many things that digital touches upon, and we tend to work with a lot of good sort of partners and lots of local partners here in different things. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that, Nathan and Laura. Some of the people that we work with, whether it's design, whether it's CRM, all of these things that we've talked about as part of our ecosystem. There are some probably areas that the charities that are here today listening might be quite interested to hear about how that sort of partnership works as well.
Yeah, you know, our world is digital. We live in that space. We know lots of people. Just as your website shouldn't be an island, nor should any digital partner. So we work in collaboration with friendly competitors, all the way through to organizations that are aligned to us in delivering that service. So, you know, we're not copywriters, we're not PR people, we're not videographers, but we know lots of people that do these things. And I'd always say, kind of, you know, we get lots of phone calls, people asking us questions. We can't help, but we probably know someone that can. And I think the importance is that we bring people to the table where they can genuinely help you, and they're aligned with your organization values and behavior. And I think that's really important in the way that we work. So, and most of those partners that we have are local to the area and really key. So, you know, I believe Robin from Red Nine's talking this week on brand, and, you know, we brought him into a number of projects where we were looking to do rebranding work because we needed some of those skills. I think it's really important to think about that and bring those people together. And again, they're all people who align themselves with that purpose and that opportunity. The flip side is the technological side, and I think too often people sort of jump into oh, we need this, and they're asking a question from a tech point of view rather than the kind of, oh, I'm trying to do this. So, you know, we need a CRM system. Why do you need a CRM system? Is a good example of that for me. And then actually making sure that system will help and support you. So too often we kind of go down alleys where you've got the wrong tech partner, you've got the wrong bit of technology in order for that. And so having those conversations early on with the right types of partners will help, you know, in those sorts of instances. You know, we're in and out in those types of consultations that might run, but actually that partner is going to be with you for a long time. Making sure they're the right sort of people to support you is really key in that.
And obviously we started the conversation today all focused on the user and the user experience. So I wondered if we could just ask you, Laura, if anyone is sitting here right now thinking, where do I start? What happens? You know, what do I do here in terms of making sure my user is front and center and they get the best experience? What would your thoughts be?
I'd definitely say that actually just kind of getting everybody together to understand those users first, because there's a wealth of knowledge within the organization, and it's actually just bringing everybody together to have those conversations to make sure that, you know, you understand all those different users that potentially could be coming to your site, speaking to you, to then go like have a look at your site and, you know, customer service, like, are we catering for those users? Have we considered the type of information they're looking for? There's a wealth of knowledge when, you know, when you're thinking about people who are speaking to people on the phones. They might get asked the same question 10 times every day. You know, you could add that to your website to reduce you know, those calls coming in and get that information to people quicker. So it's looking at it from a point of view of, you know, absorb that knowledge from around the organization to then look to see how you can improve your website. And you'll be amazed at how much you'll find, you know, people know so much about the different audiences that you cater for.
Fantastic. I don't know if Nita, have we had any questions that I've missed from the audience? It's maybe a good time to ask if anyone has any questions of the panel we have here and the people we have here with all the knowledge.
Yes, if you've got any questions, please do drop them in the chat. I know Alec was here a moment ago and he had a question, but it hasn't appeared in the chat. Thank you all, guys, for a great session this morning. I think that so many of us know that we have to diversify, we have to invest in our digital assets now for the future. And I think you've given us lots of food for thought. I can't see any questions appearing in the chat. So if we can wrap it up for now, but there are profiles set up of all of our speakers this morning. So do connect with them on LinkedIn. You can send any questions directly to them there, and we will forward anything if you want us to as well, if something pops into your mind. But it's great to have you all this morning. Thank you, Jenny, for your insight at MentoringPlus as well. And if you're watching this on catch up, great to see you too. And thank you. Have a great day at day 2 of the Business Exchange Southwest Charity Conference and Expo. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.